I helped build this company from nothing, and they tossed me out like a used napkin. My name is Davin Foster. I'm 47 years old. I live in Brookline, Massachusetts. And until 9:03 a.m. on a random Tuesday, I was the Chief Operations Officer of Meridian Health Systems. That morning, I got a calendar invite marked Leadership Alignment, Urgent. No agenda, just a time, a room, and my name. I walked into the boardroom thinking maybe we were about to roll out a new org structure. Maybe Warren had finally greenlit the Cedarbrook deal. I wasn't nervous. Why would I be? I'd spent 15 years at Meridian, helped hire most of the people now sitting in that room. But something was off. The second I stepped in, everyone was already seated, silent, not a single handshake. Thomas barely looked up from his notepad. Craig, who I'd coached through his first acquisition, suddenly found the ceiling very interesting. Even Marcia wouldn't meet my eyes. And she'd hugged me when her dog died. Then I saw Warren Blackwood, CEO, leaning back like a man about to deliver bad news he'd already practiced in the mirror. "Davin," he said, folding his hands neatly on the table. "Thank you for coming. I'll be brief. Your services are no longer required." That was it, just like that. I froze. I think I actually forgot how to breathe for a second. My heart was pounding, but everything else, my hands, my feet, felt numb, like someone had knocked the wind out of me. "Excuse me?" I said. Warren didn't flinch. "We've made a leadership transition, effective immediately. Corey will be stepping into your role." At first I thought I'd misheard. Corey? His son-in-law? Corey, the same Corey who joined us 7 months ago from some mid-tier tech startup where he was, VP of Process Innovation? I actually laughed. Corey doesn't even know how the back-end ops engine works. Warren didn't blink. He'll be supported by a robust team. That was when I knew it wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a coup. "You're replacing me with your daughter's husband," I said slowly. "And you're doing it like this?" "We appreciate your contributions," Warren said, like he was reading from a script. "But the board has aligned on a new direction." "The board?" I asked. "When did they vote?" That's when the real punch came. A silent glance passed between them. Warren, Thomas, Marcia. None of them spoke. But I saw it. They'd done it already. Without me. I felt my throat tighten. "You held a vote without informing me. You held a secret emergency session." "We followed our bylaws," Warren replied smoothly. "It was necessary." I looked around the room. These were people I'd pulled out of messes, people I'd fought for, traveled with, celebrated promotions with. I'd helped build this company from the ground up, and now they wouldn't even look me in the eye. "You planned this behind my back," I said. No one denied it. I sat there for another second, trying to process what the hell had just happened. I thought about the hours I'd put in, the weekends I'd missed, the birthday parties, the Christmas mornings where I was on conference calls from the airport, and all I could think was, I didn't even get a warning, not a heads up, not a conversation, just a meeting invite and a knife in the back. I stood up, slowly. My chair scraped the floor behind me, loud and ugly. "I see," I said. Warren nodded like this was just another Tuesday. But it wasn't. It was the day everything changed. I gave up holidays, birthdays, a family life, and they sent 2 guys to watch me carry out a cardboard box. "When did the board vote on this?" I asked. I already knew the answer, but I wanted to see who would lie to my face. Nobody rushed to speak. Not Warren, not Craig, not Marcia. Then I looked at Thomas, our CFO. We'd shared goddamn hotel rooms in our startup days. He stared down at the table like it owed him something, studying his Mont Blanc pen like it might offer moral guidance. That was my answer. Warren slid an envelope across the table. "This is a generous package," he said. "We're not monsters." I didn't touch it. My eyes stayed on him. "I signed our first 5 major clients," I said, "before we even had a CRM or a billing system. Remember that?" Warren gave a small, insincere smile. "You've been instrumental." "Instrumental," I repeated. "You mean like when I flew to Chicago with a 101-degree fever to save that $6 million deal Corey couldn't even pronounce? You remember that too?" Warren shifted in his seat. "We're not here to rehash the past." "Of course not. The past didn't serve him anymore." I stood up. Not fast, not angry, just done. "You know what I remember?" I said, letting my voice rise a little. I remember sleeping in a hospital chair after a client's data breach. I remember driving 4 hours on Christmas morning to fix a server rollback because our vendor flaked. I missed my daughter's piano recital for that one. Corey ever done anything like that? No one answered. I looked at Craig. We built this company in basements and hotel lobbies. You were there. He cleared his throat but didn't meet my eyes. This isn't personal. No, I said. It's cowardice. Warren cleared his throat. Security will escort you back to your office. We've asked them to assist with packing up your personal effects. That stopped me. Cold. I stared at him. Security? It's just a precaution, he said. A precaution, I repeated. After 15 years. I let out a breath, almost a laugh. You think I'm going to start flipping desks? I gave up my marriage for this job. I worked every Thanksgiving, and now I get babysat by rent-a-cops while I put my career in a damn cardboard box? Let's not make this harder than it needs to be, Warren said. I didn't answer. I just turned and walked out. As I moved through the glass hallway, past rows of people I'd mentored, coached, fought for, they wouldn't look at me. Every single head stayed down, suddenly very interested in Slack channels, spreadsheets, or the inside of their coffee mugs. I wasn't a man anymore. I was a warning sign. When I reached my office, 2 security guys were waiting outside. They didn't say a word, just followed me in while I pulled photos off shelves and dumped 15 years of life into a cheap folding box. That's when I heard the knock. Natalie, my assistant for 6 years, standing in the doorway with her eyes red. I just heard, she whispered. Yeah, I said quietly. It's been that kind of morning. She stepped in and closed the door behind her. They said it was about the Duclair acquisition, she said, voice breaking. That you mismanaged the integration strategy. That's what they're telling people now. I stopped packing. Duclair had been our biggest acquisition last year. The one I'd fought Warren on. The one I'd raised red flags about when their back end looked like it was held together with duct tape and prayer. You're kidding, I said. She shook her head. I heard Thomas say it outside the boardroom, that this was necessary, because you'd become a liability. A liability. I nodded once. Slow, just letting it settle. Listen, she said, blinking fast. I didn't know, I swear. I know, I said. She looked like she wanted to say more, but couldn't. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry. Me too, I said, lifting the box into my arms. And then I walked out, past the kitchen where we used to celebrate launches, past the framed company timeline I helped build, past the people pretending they'd never heard my name. No one stopped me. That was the moment I realized. I was never part of their future, just a tool they were done using. Getting fired opened a door I never thought I'd walk through. I was still numb when I left the building. Just me, a cardboard box, and 2 security guys pretending they weren't embarrassed to be there. I didn't cry, didn't yell, didn't even check my phone. I just drove. No destination. Just needed air. I pulled into a coffee shop I used to hit during late-night budgeting sessions. Sat there in the parking lot for 5 minutes before I even got out of the car. When I did, it was only because my phone finally buzzed. Natalie, she'd texted twice. Corey wants access to your files. He says he needs all your client contacts by EOD. I stared at the message, exhaling through my teeth. The guy had been in the COO seat for, 3 hours, and he was already looking to raid my playbook? I typed back, he can request them through IT like everyone else. Tell him I left him a note. Good luck pronouncing Kowalczyk Diagnostics. A minute later, she replied, I'm sorry. This whole thing is disgusting. I almost told her it was fine, but it wasn't. Not even close. I stepped inside and ordered a coffee I didn't want, then sat at a corner table and just stared at the window for a while. People walked by, normal people. People who didn't know that their legacy had just been yanked out from under them. And then, at 2:41 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number, Boston area code. Hello? Davin Foster, a woman said, voice sharp, clean. This is Davin. This is Jocelyn Vega. My spine straightened. If you've worked in healthcare ops for more than a minute, you know the name. Jocelyn Vega, CEO of Silverline Medical. Ruthless negotiator. Built Silverline from a ragtag product shop into Meridian's biggest threat. Warren used to call her that vulture in a pantsuit. She was also smart, unshakably precise. The kind of person who took meetings in 10-minute blocks and never repeated herself. I heard about this morning, she said. Wanted to reach out. I didn't respond right away. I was still trying to figure out how she even got my number. I've been following your work for a while, she continued. Knew this day might come, didn't expect it this soon. I blinked. I appreciate the call. I'd like to meet, she said. Today, if possible. 4 o'clock, Hotel Redmont, lounge upstairs. Just like that. Not a request, a directive. I hesitated. Every instinct in me screamed to say no. I was still spinning, still licking my wounds, still trying to make sense of how the people I'd worked with for 15 years could push me out like I was an old briefcase. But then, another part of me, the quieter, angrier part, spoke up. You're not tied to Meridian anymore. I checked the time. 07 p.m. I'll be there, I said. Good, Jocelyn replied. Come alone. She hung up before I could say another word. I sat there staring at my screen, heart beating faster than it had all day. The job was gone. My title stripped, my calendar cleared, but the phone still rang, and the competition was calling. I wasn't fired for screwing up. I was fired for being the only one willing to say the deal. Stank. The Redmont Hotel was one of those old money places with deep wood paneling and real silver in the sugar bowls. The kind of place Warren would call a little much. I'd never been inside. Meridian always went for sleek and modern, flash over substance. Jocelyn Vega was already seated when I walked into the upstairs lounge at 3:58. She looked exactly how I imagined. Blazer sharp enough to cut glass, dark hair pinned back, eyes scanning everything. She was the kind of woman who didn't wait for the world to catch up. She walked faster. Davin, she said, standing to shake my hand. Glad you came. Wasn't sure I would, I admitted. I was, she said, sitting back down. Eventually, every good soldier realizes he was guarding the wrong castle. That hit harder than I expected. A waiter brought us tea. No menus, no small talk. Just 2 porcelain cups and a pot that probably cost more than my first car. Let me be direct, she said. Warren just handed me the best operational brain he ever had. I'd be a fool not to use it. I raised an eyebrow. Is that what this is? A recruiting pitch? She sipped her tea, then placed the cup down with precision. Not exactly. I don't want to hire you. I want to partner with you. I blinked. Come again? I'm offering you a partner seat, she said. Equity.autonomy. A say in what Silverline becomes over the next 5 years. I need someone who understands scale, risk, execution. Someone who's been in the trenches. I didn't respond right away. My gut still wasn't sure if this was real. Why me? I asked. You don't even know me. She leaned in slightly. I know enough. You ran circles around Corey during the SimTech pilot last quarter. I watched your rollout videos. I've read every white paper you ghost wrote for Warren. I swallowed, hard. She wasn't guessing. She'd done her homework. I also know you've been the only person at Meridian raising concerns about their upcoming acquisition. I frowned. What acquisition? Renshaw Digital. My blood turned cold. That hasn't gone public yet. I have sources, she said, waving it off. The deal's a mess. Half their platform is duct taped together. HIPAA violations left and right. Warren thinks it's a shortcut to IPO. But you'd have blocked it. I sat back, stunned. So he needed me gone. Exactly, Jocelyn said. Corey won't catch the red flags. Hell, he probably thinks HIPAA is a coffee brand. I let out a bitter laugh. He needed someone who wouldn't ask questions, I said. Someone who wouldn't say no. Jocelyn nodded. You weren't fired for failing. You were fired for being in the way. I rubbed my jaw. The pieces were falling into place faster than I could catch them. I should have seen it coming. No, she said. You shouldn't have. Loyalty blinds people like you. That stung more than I wanted to admit. You sure I'm even allowed to take this offer? I asked. I'm still under non-compete. She smiled for the first time. I've already read your contract, she said, 3 times. Your non-compete doesn't block you from consulting, doesn't stop you from building internal platforms. It just limits direct solicitation for 12 months. You don't need to break it, you just need to outthink it. I stared at her, heart pounding. This wasn't a lifeline, it was a rocket ship. You really think we can beat them? I asked. She didn't flinch. You already did. They just haven't realized it yet. The tea had gone cold by the time I stood up. Jocelyn extended her hand again. "When you're ready," she said, "you'll know where to find me." I shook it firmly, and for the first time in 24 hours, I felt something strange. Hope. I didn't need to steal Meridian's clients. They were already waiting for me to show up somewhere better. That night, I stood at Montrose Point, looking across the river at Meridian's headquarters. All that glass and steel lit up like nothing had changed. From the outside, it probably hadn't. Corey was probably sitting in my chair, spinning it like a kid who just found the grown-up desk. Maybe he even cracked open the onboarding doc I'd left behind and thought he was running the show. From where I stood, the building looked exactly the same, but I wasn't. The anger was still there, sure, but beneath it, something quieter had started to settle in. Clarity. For the first time in years, I wasn't tethered to anything. No board meetings, no late-night fire drills, no Warren. And that's when my phone rang. Dr. Erica Stein, head of partnerships at Cedarbrook Health. One of our largest clients, one of my clients. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something in my gut said, "Pick up." "Davin," she said. "I just got a call from Warren." I closed my eyes. "Let me guess. Reassuring you that Corey's the second coming of Steve Jobs?" She snorted. "He said Corey's taking over your portfolio, that things will be seamless." I didn't say anything. "I don't believe that," she said bluntly. "Not for a second." I stayed quiet. Let her talk. "You built our onboarding system from scratch," she said. "You helped our CTO design that EMR integration when Renshaw was dragging their feet. And yes, I know about the Renshaw deal. Everybody does. And if they're really putting Corey in charge of that mess, I can't imagine it ends well." I sat down on a bench facing the river. "Are you calling to ask if I'm going to sue them?" I asked, trying to keep the sarcasm in check. "No," she said. "I'm calling because if you ever do private consulting, I want to talk." I blinked. "You'd pull out of a Meridian renewal?" She didn't hesitate. "I'd put it on pause, at the very least. If you had a better option, Davin, I'd listen." I didn't respond. Couldn't. I just looked back at the Meridian building, all lit up like it still meant something. But it didn't, not really, because it wasn't the platform they trusted. It wasn't the brand, it wasn't the leadership. It was me. That hit me harder than anything had all week. I didn't need Meridian's blessing to build something great. I was the thing they had been banking on for 15 years, and they didn't even know it. I ended the call with Erica after promising I'd circle back soon. Then, at 6:43 the next morning, I sent a text to Jocelyn. "I'm in," she replied 30 seconds later. "Welcome aboard, let's make some noise." The funny part? I didn't even feel like I was betraying anyone. Meridian had already shown me the door. All I did was walk through it, and apparently half their clients were waiting on the other side. My first consulting project? Helping Cedarbrook renegotiate a contract I'd written the original playbook for. It wasn't revenge. It was redemption. I didn't need to pull Meridian down. I just stopped holding them up. Jocelyn didn't waste time. The Monday after I said yes, I was walking through the doors of Silverline's Cambridge branch. 5th floor, corner office, direct view of the Charles River. And right across the water, in plain sight, was the Meridian building. I couldn't have drawn it better if I tried. "This is symbolic, right?" I asked the receptionist as she handed me my badge. She smiled like she knew exactly what I meant. The office was different from Meridian's. Less Polish, more purpose. Engineers talked in clusters. No flashy art or branded buzzwords on the walls. Just ideas being built in real time. Jocelyn gave me full rein. She didn't ask for daily reports or progress decks. She just said, "Show me something better than what they let you build." So I did. First, I called 3 analysts I knew were already on the edge at Meridian: James, Rita, and Alejandra. Each one had pulled me aside in the last year, saying the same thing: "This place doesn't listen." The moment I told them what I was working on, they didn't hesitate. They were ready. Officially, they gave 2 weeks' notice. Unofficially, they started working on prototypes with me that same weekend. We rebuilt the client service model I'd been pitching to Warren for the last 5 years. The one he always said was too ambitious. A fully modular, compliance-first operations engine that flexed by hospital size and budget. We didn't have red tape. We had ideas, and now we had freedom. And it clicked. Asked. Within 3 weeks, 2 hospitals I'd been chasing for years, Roosevelt Medical in Jersey and Midstate Health in Vermont, reached out to me. They weren't angry, just curious. "We heard you're doing something new," one exec said on a Zoom call. "Something that doesn't require a dictionary to understand and 2 months to implement." I smiled and sent over our new onboarding doc. 5 pages, plain English, full transparency. They signed within 10 days. Now, I wasn't even trying to poach Meridian's clients. I stuck to the letter of my non-solicitation agreement. No direct calls, no email blasts. I didn't reach out. They came to me. Meanwhile, Meridian was starting to wobble. Natalie texted late one night, "Just overheard something in the kitchen, Brookview's pulling out, CFO's in full meltdown. Corey looks like he aged 10 years in a week." I didn't respond right away, just stared at the screen for a bit. Brookview was a cornerstone account, one I'd personally brought in after a year of check-ins, whiteboard sessions, and 4 in-person visits. They didn't leave because someone else offered more. They left because I wasn't there to fix what came next. 1 week later, something even more surreal happened. I got a message through Silverline's contact form from Cedarbrook Health. Specifically, their operations team. The subject line read, "Platform Evaluation Request, Meridian Partnership." I opened it, expecting a basic inquiry. Instead, it was a full brief. They wanted an independent consulting review of Meridian's infrastructure. An audit, really. They wanted to know whether to renew the multi-year platform deal Warren had signed them into, the same deal I had designed before getting pushed out. I sat there, rereading it 3 times. It wasn't just about trust anymore. They were ready to walk. That night, I stayed late in my office. Lights off, blinds up, city blinking all around me. Across the river, Meridian's logo still glowed, still looked like it always had. But it wasn't the same. Not without me. I wasn't throwing punches. I wasn't out for revenge. I was just building the thing I'd always believed in. And apparently, that was enough to make everything start shifting. Not because I forced it, but because when I stopped holding them up, they collapsed on their own. Warren wasn't just regretting the decision. He was begging for help. I was still at the office typing out final notes on Cedarbrook's infrastructure report when my phone rang. Late. Unknown number. For a second, I thought about ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello?" There was a pause. Then a voice I knew better than my own calendar. "Davin?" "Warren." I leaned back in my chair, eyes fixed on the glowing Meridian logo across the river. "Bit late for a check-in, isn't it?" He cleared his throat. Tried for his usual calm, but it cracked around the edges. The board might have acted too quickly. I didn't say anything. "I've been speaking with some of our partners," he continued, like this was a normal business call. "There's been some fallout, unexpected concerns about continuity, leadership gaps." "You don't say." Another pause. "I wanted to see if you'd consider coming back," he said, "in an advisory capacity. Help steady the ship." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so incredibly Warren. Dress up a white flag like a formal invitation. "And would this role," I asked, "come with Corey reporting to me?" That hit. I could practically hear him blink. He's still involved, but we're reviewing." "So no." Silence. "I'm prepared to match any offer," he said finally. "Silverline, whoever. Whatever they're paying, we'll match it or beat it." It would have been flattering if it weren't pathetic. I kept my voice level. "It was never about the money, Warren. It was about respect. And you lost that the second you slid that envelope across the table like I was some vendor who missed a deadline. I did what I thought was best." "No," I cut in. "You did what was easiest. You removed the one person who would have told you Renshaw was radioactive. And now, guess what? It's leaking." He started to say something, but I ended the call. I didn't slam the phone down, didn't cuss or rant. I just sat there, watching his company's building blink in the dark like it still had something to say. 5 minutes later, my inbox pinged. Subject, private from Thomas McBride. Our old CFO, the same guy who couldn't meet my eyes the morning I got canned. "Davin, I know I don't have the right to ask for anything, but you deserve to know the truth. I've attached the board minutes from the session held the night before your termination. You weren't even invited. They already had Corey's appointment written into the proposal. For what it's worth, I didn't vote in favor. I should have said something then. I'm saying it now. There it was. Black and white. The full transcript. Warren calling the session. Corey's name on the short list. My objections mentioned, mocked even. One board member called me a process relic. I read it once, then again, and then I smiled. It wasn't just regret anymore. Now it was proof. They didn't lose because I sabotaged them. They lost because I stopped protecting them. The Cedarbrook contract came through at 10:12 on a Thursday morning. I remember the time because I was on a call with one of our analysts, sketching out a rollout plan for Midstate Health, when my phone lit up with a message from Erica. We're in, 5-year deal, total value, $255 million first payment processes, Monday. I stared at the screen, then stood up and walked to the window. Across the river, Meridian's building looked the same, still tall, still smug, still pretending like nothing was collapsing from the inside out. But they'd just lost a $51 million a year contract. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the urge to fix it. Jocelyn walked into my office 2 minutes later. Got the news, she said, holding up her phone. Pop the champagne or order more ammo. I smiled. Why not both? We went to dinner that night. Nothing flashy, just a steakhouse near Harvard Square where no one cared about last names or company titles. We sat in a quiet booth and toasted to corrections of injustice. You know, she said, topping off our glasses, when I offered you that partner seat, I knew you'd be good. But this is clinical. I shrugged. Turns out when you stop fighting upstream, you move faster. Over the next week, it snowballed. First came 2 hospital networks I'd worked with during my final years at Meridian, Red Oak and Gilmore Health Systems. Both reached out, unprompted. We heard about the new platform, one rep said. We've been meaning to rethink our contract situation. What they meant was, we trusted you, and now we don't trust Meridian. By then, the fallout from the Cedarbrook switch was already public. Industry blogs picked it up. Finance wires noticed the stock drop, 18% in 48 hours. Then came whispers of compliance problems at Renshaw. Then full-on reporting. By Monday, HepaWatch ran an article titled, Meridian's acquisition, Gamble may have just imploded. The best part? The report quoted a former executive who warned about the risks months earlier. They didn't name me, but I didn't have to read between the lines. The HIPAA violations were bad. Real bad. Renshaw had stored patient metadata on overseas servers, some anonymized, some not. Corey hadn't flagged a single red flag because, frankly, he didn't know what one looked like. Natalie texted later that week. Board called an emergency session. Warren's out. Corey too. Crisis team incoming. I stared at the message for a while, then typed, hope they kept the envelope. I was halfway through typing another response when my inbox pinged again. It was from someone I hadn't heard from in months, a former VP at Meridian. Attached was a short message and one brutal PDF, a leaked internal memo outlining the real reason for my removal. The words hit like a slap. Primary risk identified. Foster's likely resistance to Renshaw integration due to overemphasis on compliance. There it was. They hadn't fired me for underperformance. They fired me because I would have stopped them from making the exact mistake that was now blowing up in their face. I forwarded the file to Jocelyn without comment. She replied 5 minutes later, this is the cherry on the sundae. Let it leak. Let them eat it. I didn't have to say yes. She knew I wouldn't stop it. Within 24 hours, industry insiders were passing around the PDF like it was the Zapruder film. One consultant posted a screenshot on LinkedIn with the caption, imagine firing the one guy who knew what the breaks were for. By Friday, 3 other clients had called me personally to discuss evaluation opportunities. I didn't have to badmouth Meridian, they did it themselves. That night, as I left the office, the receptionist handed me a folded note. Handwritten, Das Natalie. Just wanted you to know, I turned in my notice. Couldn't do it anymore. I'll land on my feet. You already did. I read it twice, folded it back up, and slipped it into my coat pocket. It wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about something simpler. letting the truth come out. Cold, unrushed. Just like justice should be, they thought firing me ended my story. It just gave me permission to write a better one. Meridian was unraveling faster than anyone expected. First came the headlines. CEO and COO ousted amid compliance scandal. Then the investor flight. Within 2 months, their valuation had dropped by a third. Big-name clients walked quietly. Some even scrubbed the Meridian logo from their sites before the ink dried on the termination papers. I wasn't watching with a smirk. Not anymore. By then, I was too busy. Silverline had handed me the reins to build something more than just a consulting practice. I launched a second arm, focused entirely on operational compliance. We called it ClearPath. It was built from all the things Warren dismissed for years: data traceability, audit prep workflows, clinical comms protocols. The boring stuff, the stuff that saved you when everything else broke. By month 4, we'd signed 3 of Meridian's biggest contracts, totaling over $90 million, and not a single lawyer came knocking. We didn't break rules, we made them irrelevant. Jocelyn flew in from New York one weekend just to walk the halls with me. She said the quiet part out loud as we passed the conference room. This isn't a rebound, this is a regime change. I didn't argue. Our systems were leaner, our support tighter, and our delivery times 3 times faster than Meridian's ever were. But none of that was what really stuck. It was the name. One day, I walked into a meeting with a potential hospital client, big private network down in Connecticut. They'd been evaluating several vendors. When I introduced myself, their CIO raised an eyebrow. "You're David Foster," he said. "As in the David Protocol?" I paused. "I don't know what you mean." He chuckled. "That's what some folks in the industry are calling Silverline's new service architecture, the one that flipped Cedarbrook and Brookview in the same quarter." I blinked. I hadn't heard that. Not officially. Not from anyone I worked with. But it was spreading. They were calling it mine. I didn't correct him. After the meeting, I walked back to my office and stood at the window. Same view, same river. But the Meridian logo across the way didn't mean what it used to. It wasn't home. It wasn't even competition anymore. It was a cautionary tale. I stayed there a while, thinking about everything that had happened, about the boardroom on that Tuesday morning, about the cardboard box, about Corey trying to act like a leader because someone handed him a title he never earned. They'd thought I was just a cog, a legacy piece to be swapped out. But the legacy wasn't the building. It was me. I took a slow breath, then said it out loud, just to hear the words in the air. "Goodbye, Warren. You were never the legacy." That night, I walked out of the office a little later than usual. Cambridge was quiet. No wind, just that strange kind of calm that only comes when the storm's over and you're still standing. Silverline wasn't just my new home, it was the future. And the industry, they weren't looking at Meridian anymore. They were looking at me.